Yes. Okay, so everybody, welcome to NDE STE Ireland, and today I'm joined by my friend Ahlmeirah Ariel Hallaire. And yeah, welcome to people all around the world. So I'll do a brief introduction. And then we'll let Ahlmeirah take off from there. Okay, so back in the 1990s, around 1991, I joined a school of philosophy where I wanted to learn all about people go in there went to learn about different philosophies from around the world and the universal principles that exist in all religions and spiritualities and all expressions of spirituality. And I was there to learn those and met a number of people. There was probably about 10 of us that used to hang around together. And there was a woman there called Ariel who was part of the group. So I knew Armel for about 8 or 9 years through the 90s, and she was training to be a doctor for most of that time that I knew her. And at some point, she qualified as a doctor but continued her training. And um, in the late 90s, we kind of lost touch a bit. But I heard that about 6 months after she finished all her studies, she had left medicine. And I was really surprised to hear that because I knew she put so much into her studies. And I didn't get to speak to her again because she went to the UK. And that was the last I saw of Armel for a long, long time. Then in March of 2024, I was trying to sleep one night and I couldn't sleep. I just could not sleep. And if sleeping was an Olympic sport, I would have the gold medal every time. But finally, at 2 or 3 in the morning, I kept getting this message, this telepathic message, find somebody from your past. They have something to teach you. Find somebody from your past. They have something to teach you. And I said, yeah, I'll do it at the weekend or I'll do it tomorrow after work. I have to go to work in the morning. But it kept coming in strong and I was not allowed to sleep that night. So I started Googling names of people I knew from the past and didn't find anyone. Then I started looking at the images on Google for photographs of people. And I was saying to my guides or whoever was talking to me, look, I didn't find anyone. Then I was guided to look at one particular photograph, at the eyes of somebody on one particular photograph. And I was saying, I know those eyes. And I was looking at the eyes and I was told, this is who you're looking for. I said, but I don't know this person. But eventually I started to look beyond the eyes at the face and the hair. And I looked at the name written underneath and there it said, that's Armel, but she's changed her name. And of course, it was 26 years later, so we look a little different. But I started to, this is who you're looking for, I was told. So I started to dig further into Google and I found a website for the Center of Love and Enlightenment. And I saw some amazing courses and videos and testaments on this website. And I said, oh my God, this is the dream Armel had back in the 90s. She used to talk about this dream of, of manifesting this, everything that's there in the Center of Love and Enlightenment. She's done it. So I sent an email and said, hey, do you remember me? And got an email back, said, yeah, I remember you. And, I said, do you want to chat on Zoom? And I said, yeah, we can chat, but I might not be who you think I am. And I didn't know what that meant. But anyway, this is when I met Ahlmeirah. So Ahlmeirah, would you like to take over and tell us what happened?
Thank you for your introduction, Charlie. And I'm very happy to meet everybody here. I'm also a French speaker because I'm originally French. I was born in France, in Versailles, actually. And indeed, I knew Charlie in the 90s, but it wasn't really me because since then I've had a walk-in. And a walk-in is a soul exchange. So it means the essence of who you are. You know, the first one who was there, in my case, that was Armel. She left, and a new soul came in, and that's who I am, Ahlmeirah. So it sounds like a really crazy thing. Some people think walk-ins are like Invaders of the Body Snatchers, you know, that stupid movie from the 80s. It's nothing like that. It's a spiritual contract. It happens as a result of a contract between the two souls. So, and this contract was set up before Armel was born, before this body was born, between the two souls. So this is why there's a continuity. And Charlie is a very unusual person because he's one of the few people who has known the first soul and also the current soul. So he can see that there's a continuity, because Armel used to talk about these dreams and I have made them happen. So that means the two souls working together. They have a contract together. So the contract of the first soul, Armel, was to prepare the personality. So all those years of studying medicine and those years of studying philosophy with Charlie, they were not put to waste. They were important. They were like, if you can imagine, the foundation of a pyramid. And then when there was the walk-in, so that was in 1999. So I'll talk more in detail about the walk-in, but I just want to give you an overview first of what happens with a walk-in. So initially, of course, the walk-in can create some disruptions because it's like a big burst of light. So if anybody has had Kundalini awakenings or near-death experiences, a walk-in can be like that. It disrupts you because, you know, spiritually there's a lot of light that comes in. And so I've continued basically the work that was set in place by Armel. And over the years, I developed many different tools and different teachings, different workshops, different trainings. And the purpose, of course, is all to help humanity in this transition that we're going through as humanity. Because I'm sure you're all here because you've realized humanity is going through this vast movement. It's like a vast transition. And in that transition, it's not easy to handle transitions. There's lots of things that want to shift and lots of things that want to change, and lots of old programs that don't work anymore, but we don't know exactly what the new ones are. So that's what, in a way, the Center of Love and Enlightenment is about. And when I set it up, I was on my own, but now I have my partner who's joined me and my son also, and I have been focusing on training lots of people. So Charlie, for example, came to my training last year.
Yeah.
And
Can you tell us what it was like, the previous soul leaving and the new one coming in? What sort of a challenge was that, if you're comfortable to tell us?
yes, of course. So I'll talk a little bit about before, because there was some pre-walk-in experiences. So Armel had already left medicine about 2 years before the walk-in. And she left medicine as a result of an experience, a spiritual experience. So it's a bit weird to say she, but it is actually she. I know, it's a bit.
Yeah, yeah, it is. Yeah,
So she was a wonderful being, but she had had a very difficult upbringing, and some difficult things had happened in her life. And as a result of that, she was suffering from anorexia and bulimia, two eating disorders, which often mix together. And also there was some depression. So she was looking for some solutions to healing these things. And as a result of that, she was doing different things. Actually, New Acropolis was part of the search. That helped in some ways.
That was the school of philosophy we were in.
I was the school of philosophy. And so she was on this journey of trying to heal herself, and she was in a healing group. And at the time, she didn't really understand what healing was all about because she was a scientist, a medic. And but in that healing group, something happened. It felt like there was somebody behind, like behind the back, and it felt like they were opening the back. I still remember the feeling because I have Armel's memories, not all of them, but quite a few of them. So I remember that feeling of opening, and then it felt like a wind came in the body, for want of a better word, like a light wind, a gentle wind, not like one of those storms that just went through Ireland. And when of course, now in hindsight, I understand that this was a reconnection experience. And this reconnection turned Armel's life upside down because from that moment onwards, she could feel the connection to her higher self. And before that, she was disconnected, like most of humanity are. Most people are disconnected. And that reconnection, of course, meant that there was guidance coming in. And the guidance said, time to leave medicine. So something that you've been working towards for 10 years, suddenly out the window. And I think I had actually left New Acropolis very shortly before that, maybe a couple of months before that. So there was a process of leaving things. And so it was a weird time, but thankfully Armel had a boyfriend who knew how to live following the guidance. So he coached her during this period. And then for a while, she started working as a healer, but just purely intuitive healing, no tools apart from just intuition. And so her healing abilities were opening up, and also her intuitive abilities. And for about 6 months before the walk-in, she kept hearing walk-in, walk-in, walk-in. Didn't know what it meant. And for those of you who know Dublin, there's a part of Dublin that's called Walkinstown. So Armel thought, oh, it's my guides telling me I have to move to Walkinstown. So I remember going to visit the place, and it was a complete dive, not a good place to live. Lots of crime and not a good energy. And I have the memory of going to visit there and thinking, no, it's not about moving there. That doesn't feel right. And also there was these weird experiences of losing time. So, for example, she would be doing something and it would be 3 o'clock, and then the next thing it was like 6 o'clock. A very weird experience of, well, where did those 3 hours go? So there was a lot of these weird things. And also there was this spontaneous bliss. So she would be going into these spontaneous bliss experiences without knowing why. And she started embarking on these light body sessions, light body integration sessions, with a guy in the UK. And so she was going to the UK regularly for these sessions because this was pre-Zoom, pre-everything online. Everything had to be done in person. And in one of those sessions, so Armel arrived at the session, and halfway through the session, so the guy who was doing the session, his name is Nicholas. Halfway through the session, Nicholas said, the guides are saying to me that if you want, you can have a walk-in. And Armel said, well, what's that? What's a walk-in? So he explained very briefly. He said, well, it's an opportunity for the current soul to leave the body, but the body doesn't die because a new soul comes in immediately and takes over the life. And I remember Armel feeling inside, does that feel right? And she knew this was the right thing. So she said yes to Nicholas. And the experience was very weird. It felt like the whole body went uh, buzzy and hot and tingly. And then it felt like the energy was retreating from the extremities. So the energy was retreating from the arms and the feet, and everything just came into the center column, and then out. The other one came in immediately. And the new soul had a bit of trouble fitting into the body. It wasn't quite, you know, I don't know if you've ever tried putting on somebody else's shoes. It's a very weird feeling. Well, it's the same concept with a walk-in, except your whole life is like that. You're literally arriving in somebody else's life. It's a very weird experience. So thankfully, the guy who was doing the session, Nicholas, he knew a little bit about walk-ins, and he helped me to integrate, and he helped me to understand what was going on. And a few days after that, I went back to Ireland to Armel's life. It was very bizarre.
Yeah, I can imagine it felt very strange. Um, just for anyone else out there who's had a walk-in experience, and me having been witness to Armel and having had Armel as a friend and knowing you and when you explained to me what happened, just like you did there, of course, now I've had time to digest. But I felt a sadness that Armel was gone. I like first of all, I knew you were telling me the truth because as an empath, I saw a quote on Facebook some time ago saying you might as well be honest with me straight away because your energy is going to tell me the truth anyway. So your energy told me the truth as much as your words did. So I felt sadness that Armel was gone because I thought I was catching up with an old friend, and I was there. Who are you? You know, and yeah, we got to know each other a bit since, and so I'm kind of a witness to your experience in a way, and also, oh, what was I going to say there? Yes, the soul vibe is different. You're a different vibration from what Armel was. But when I look at you and I see the same smile, the same facial expressions, the same laugh, the same voice, it took me a while to realize that there's somebody else in there. So it's good getting to know you. And what else was I going to say about that? Yeah, one thing that really showed me that it's a different soul was when I met you again in 20, well, almost a year ago. I was saying, how do you remember me? And you said, well, you share the same brain, so you have the same memory. You have some memories that are Mel had of me. And I said, but not all the memories. Then I said, do you remember the Lion King? Because Armel absolutely loved The Lion King. She and I and whoever friends we had at the time, we went to see The Lion King. Armel went to see The Lion King about 10 times in the cinema. And then I went a few times as well, because I loved the show as well. And then about 6 months after it wasn't shown in the cinema anymore, Armel came to me and said, they're showing The Lion King in Harold's Cross Cinema. I said, what again? I said, yeah, yeah, will we go? So I said to you, do you remember The Lion King? And you were, I know the story, but what about it? And I said, you're not Armel.
I have no memory of that whatsoever.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's not necessarily your favorite show at the moment.
I think it's a great movie, but there's
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, yes. So, what is it like then, um, being a walk-in and coming into somebody else's life and everybody expects or thinks that you're the same person?
So I just want to clarify, first of all, because the walk-in I had was what's called a conscious walk-in. That
Okay.
means I was aware of the old soul leaving and I was aware of the new one coming in. But actually, that's not the case for most walk-ins. About 99% of walk-ins are what were called unconscious walk-ins, and they happen when the personality is disrupted in some way. So it can be the person has an accident. So this happened to a friend of mine, for example. She had an operation. And then after the operation, she woke up in the hospital and she was like this brand new soul who just arrived on Earth. And she was like, where am I? What's going on? So it can happen like that as well. It can happen when there's a shock to the body. So the thing is that it's not the shock that causes the walk-in, it's the other way around. In order for the walk-in to come in, the personality needs to be disrupted. So they will manifest some kind of trauma, like an accident or an operation or something. And then that's the opportunity for the walk-in to come in. It can happen also for women when they're giving birth, because of course that's a big, big turning point in your life. It can happen when somebody has a big crisis also, like a disease, a divorce, a major depression, you know, some kind of big disruptive thing where your whole life is destabilized. So I'm just saying this in case there's somebody out there who's watching the show and is thinking, well, I didn't have the same experience as Ahlmeirah. And every walk-in is completely unique. I've worked with hundreds and hundreds of walk-ins over the years, and they're all a little bit different. But to answer your question, Charlie, it's very weird to arrive in somebody else's life. And in the case of, well, in my case, the personality or the body was 30. You know, so at 30 years old, your life is somewhat established. You know, you've got a job, you've got a certain circle of friends, you live in a certain place. It's not like, you know, when you're in your early 20s where everything's changing. So it literally felt like it was somebody else's life. And I remember opening the wardrobe and thinking, we've got a problem here. I didn't like any of the clothes. So I dumped most of the clothes. But that's not the trickiest bit. The trickiest bit is the relationships, of course, because you know, in my case, Ariel had a boyfriend. Thankfully, he was very intuitive, and I remember him ringing me, and the first thing he said was, "Hello, stranger. Hi, Claudia. Good to see you." And thankfully, he was very intuitive. And the minute he said, "Hello, stranger," I said, well, I actually am a stranger.
Yeah, yeah.
Poor guy, of course, it was a big, you know, shock for him. And as far as I was concerned, he was not my boyfriend. So that was the end of the relationship, which is, you know, of course, a shock.
Yeah.
And it was the same with our male's friends. Quite a few of them had a grief reaction. You know, like you were saying earlier on, Charlie, that
Mhm.
sad. But in your case, we hadn't seen each other for a long time, so there was probably more space. But you know what happened with me? Well, it was quite weird actually because I was staying with some of our Mel's friends when I was in the UK. So they were actually waiting for me in a coffee shop. So they were waiting for Armel to come out, but then I came out,
Yeah.
and so they were a couple. And the guy who was very close to Armel, he had a grief reaction there and then because I explained to them what happened. I just landed on Earth. I didn't realize that you had to be gentle with humans. You know, I thought you could just say the truth. I didn't realize you have to be, you know, use a little bit of sugarcoating. I didn't sugarcoat anything. I just arrived and said, hi, I've just arrived. Armel's gone. And he had a grief reaction, this poor man. And he was not happy at all. And he was actually quite angry with me for arriving. And I thought, but you know, this was a contract. We've organized this. So it's quite tricky. You know, if for want of a better word. And another friend who Armel was very close with, he had a full-blown grief reaction. And he wanted me to comfort him, but I wasn't able to, because it was like, well, she's gone.
Yeah.
But it's very weird because, when somebody dies, usually when somebody leaves, you usually have a dead body and you have a funeral. And
That's what I was thinking at the time. I did a ceremony to say goodbye to Armel.
yes, and that's what
No funeral.
funerals are necessary for everybody to get together and to talk about the person who's died, and then they support each other. We'll miss her or whatever, but
Mhm.
it's over. But in this case, it wasn't over, and there was no funeral, and there was no crowd of people who could support each other and say bye bye, Armel. It was very weird. And one of the weirdest situations for me was going to see Armel's parents. So they were living in County Galway, in Clifton, on the west coast. And I went to see them after, well, I can't remember exactly how long, a couple of months probably after the walk-in. And it was literally like, who are these people who think they're my parents? It was so uncomfortable energetically for me. But of course, they were completely 3D people. They didn't know anything about spirituality. They didn't even understand about souls. They were atheists. So I couldn't start saying to them, well, your daughter's gone, actually.
Mhm.
So it was a very weird situation for me. And the only way I could handle it was to distance myself from them. And eventually, it took a few years, but they sort of saw that I had changed. But what happened was I had a child about a year and a bit after the walk-in. And probably many of you know that when a woman has a baby, when she's pregnant, a lot of women change during pregnancy. So they put down all the changes to the hormones, and she's having a baby and that's why she's different. So that's how they were able to kind of cope with it. And the name is a very weird thing. Not all walk-ins change their names, but quite an amount of them do. And in my case, from the very beginning, I felt I don't want to be called Armel. That's not my name. But I didn't know what my name was. So I went through this weird period for about a week or two, where the people around me, I told them about the walk-in, and they called me R2D2. You know that little robot in Star
Yeah.
Wars?
Yes.
That I had an intermediary name, R2D2, for a couple of weeks. And then I just meditated one day, and I asked, what's my name? And an angel appeared. I mean, I'm not Lorna Byrne. They don't appear in my rooms every day, but an angel appeared, uh, just like I can see you.
Hmm.
I remember his face. I remember his energy. I remember his voice. And he said to me, "Your name is Ahlmeirah." And I said to him, "You've got to be joking. That's the name of a car."
I didn't think about that before. Nissan Almira.
There was a Nissan Ahlmeirah that had come out
Yes, yes, yes.
before that. And he didn't laugh or anything. He was really dead serious, this angel. And he just looked at me straight and he said, "Your name is Ahlmeirah." But it was like, okay. I'm sure some angels have a sense of humor. That one was very serious. But it's not every day that an angel arrives in your room and tells you what your name is. I have to admit, it took me a little while to feel comfortable with the name. But now it definitely feels like me.
I can imagine, you've given us a few examples there, but I can imagine it took a long time to integrate
Mm.
who you are in this world, not only because the world Armel knew had expectations, oh, this is who Armel is, but suddenly you're not. And I'm sure most people couldn't see who you actually are. I'm sure it took some time. And I mean, I've heard with a near-death experience, it can take 10 years to integrate. I have a friend who only told me last year she had a near-death experience, and I knew she was spiritual, but I didn't know she had a near-death experience. But she said, I'm not who I was. That old person has died. And,
Mm.
it's still the same soul and the same body, but the old life is gone. And it can take 10, maybe 10 years. It's different for everyone.
Mm.
But often I hear 10 years quoted. Was it
Yeah,
similar for you?
absolutely. Took me the best part of 10 years at least.
Hmm.
During that time, I felt like my body was in a process of detoxification, ongoing detoxification. So, physical detoxification, emotional detoxification, mental detoxification. So, basically, releasing continuously old programs, old limiting ways of seeing the world, old emotions, old traumas. And it was really, really intense.
Yeah. Yeah.
But honestly, I can say a walk-in is similar to a near-death experience because the body goes very close to death, at that moment where the soul leaves. And then the new soul comes in and it's like you're brand new on earth. So
Yeah.
it was okay with new people, Charlie. And I remember meeting new people, and even in Dublin, I remember meeting new people. And some of the new people who were very sensitive, they could feel who I was. And I remember this woman said to me, she said to me, how long have you been in Ireland? And I said to her, oh, I've been living here, can't remember how much it was, 18 years or 20 years or whatever. And she said to me, that's weird because you feel like you've just arrived.
Yeah.
Could feel the energy of the walk-in who just arrived. So some people could feel it. But that's how she interpreted that I just arrived in Ireland, not that I just arrived on Earth.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. And tell us about the Center of Love and Enlightenment.
So, to be honest with you, I do not remember that Armel had this same dream. And that's one of the weird things that you shared with me, Charlie. I don't remember.
Well, I saw her through all those years training to be a doctor and eventually working as a doctor. And all the while, she was very spiritual and dreamed of a better world, of a world where spirituality was normal for everyone, that nobody would ever question it, and that healing was a spiritual thing.
Mm.
Okay, thing isn't a good word to use, but healing came from a spiritual point of view, and medicine was kind of a support to that.
Mm.
And when I saw your website, I thought, oh my God, she's done it.
Mm. Yes, well, it didn't happen overnight. um, so, of course, I've been here now I've been here 25 years, nearly 26. So I've learned a lot about the third dimension, and I've learned that things are slow.
Mhm.
Because in the higher dimensions, you think and it happens. It's immediate. And of course, when I arrived here, I thought it was the same, but it's not. You have to do things and it takes time. And, you got to get a website going. And that means you get a call of somebody who knows how to build a website. And then you need to get the graphics and then everything's slow.
And did you come in with all this knowledge about how to awaken healers and how to help other walk-ins integrate, or did you have to learn that once you got here? Or was it a matter of, okay, in the spiritual dimension you can do it straight away, but how do I do it here?
So I came in with lots of abilities but I didn't know all the abilities immediately. So it was a gradual process of development. So for example, within a few weeks, Nicholas said to me, you have the ability to be a light body surgeon, which was what he was doing. And I said to him, oh, really? I didn't know that. So then afterwards he trained me, and it was literally like I was remembering. It felt like I was remembering. It was that easy. It felt like falling out of bed. It was just so easy to remember these abilities. When my baby was little, it was about 6 months old. I was hanging the laundry one morning, as you do, because when you're baby, you're constantly doing laundry. I'm sure you all know this. And as I was hanging the laundry, my guide said to me, now it's time to teach a group about abundance. I said to the guides, have you seen me? I'm not living abundantly right now. I'm, up to my elbows in dirty nappies and sleepless nights, and my life's a mess, I said to them. And but I did walk in with the knowledge of how abundance works, which is I know it sounds really weird, but I just know how abundance works. And so I said to my guides, look, okay, I'm happy to teach an abundance group, but first I will want to apply everything that I know. So I did. I applied everything that I know about abundance, and very rapidly my life changed. And then I started teaching abundance, and I do teach a group about abundance about once a year. And abundance is not a complicated issue. It seems like a big issue. You look around at the world and you see lots of people struggling financially, and you think, God, that's a big issue on planet Earth. But actually, from a spiritual perspective, it's not complicated at all, abundance. It's just got to do with connection and disconnection. If you're connected, there's abundance. If you're disconnected, there's lack of abundance. And of course, there's loads of programs around it, but they're not difficult to undo. So, yeah.
I think people get confused with abundance because anytime you look up YouTube or Facebook videos about abundance, it's all about cash. It's always
Yeah.
about money, whereas a friend of mine lives partly in Australia, partly in Ireland. Instead, if you ever want to come to Australia, you have free accommodation. So that's even if you're just talking about financial, and I don't have to pay for a hotel in Australia, But it's more than that. I saw a video you did with Teresa recently about abundance, and I started practicing. Oh, I'm kind of making it about me now, but love is the answer always.
Yes.
But I did a healing session on myself a few days ago, and Mother Mary came to me, and she said, "I am an expression of the Mother Goddess." And then there was this huge, huge, huge light around her. She looked tiny in comparison to the light. And that was a glimpse of the Mother Goddess, and there was huge, huge love coming through. And that was just from listening to your video and opening my mind a little bit more. Oh, and the beautiful thing is the Mother Goddess said to me, "I will never abandon you," as I felt on my own all the time, But yeah.
Mm.
Anyway, sorry, I cut across you. You were telling us
No,
about
it's
abundance.
nice that you share also, Charlie. It's nice.
Yeah.
Uh, so, yeah, abundance is not very complicated. It's just about connecting to love. The thing is that it can be complicated because the lower chakras, so of course, as humans, we've got a physical body, and the lower chakras, especially the first and second chakra, they have lots of programs around not enough and lack, and there's limitation. So in our base chakra, especially, we have belief that there's not enough. There's not enough to go around, or there's not enough time, or there's not enough love, or whatever. And in the second chakra, we have issues around worthiness. So that's the emotional aspect of lack, the unworthiness. But it's relatively easy to undo. And then the other things that I teach, the divine healing, that partially came through me, but not only. It was It was work that I brought through as a team. So I had two other friends, and we got together as a team, and we brought through this healing modality, which Charlie has started to learn.
Yes, and you may remember earlier I said I had to find someone from my past. They have something to teach me, and it was you were to awaken the healer in me.
Mm.
And funnily enough, my sister, who's on the call there, Dawn, is a healer too. And a few months earlier, she had a vision of me as a healer,
Mm.
and she might as well have told me I would walk on the moon. I mean, I know she's honest; she wouldn't lie about it, but it was such a strange thought, you know. And then, um, we found each other, and you woke the healer in me,
Mm.
and so many others as well.
Yes,
And actually, for the next level, I knew you were going to teach the next level in April, and I had so much in my mind saying, no, there's no way I can do that. But then I got nudges to do it, and then you got a nudge to ask me to do it. So it's funny how these things work.
yes. Well, over the years, I've realized that, the purpose of Ahlmeirah arriving on Earth was to bring healing on Earth. So Armel was already a healer, and that's why, I'm a continuation of what she started. She was a healer already as a doctor. She was a very good doctor. And then she became a healer before I walked in, and I've just expanded on what was there already.
Hmm.
So for the last 25 years, I've been busy uh, doing lots and lots of healing and also training people to be healers.
Yeah.
And
I just think that's really cool that I knew you all through your 20s and now you're kind of still in your 20s.
that's funny. I've got a few wrinkles though.
Me too.
Mm.
Is there anything else you'd like to tell us before we open the floor to questions?
I want to say, if there's some walk-ins listening to this video at some point, um, don't lose heart. As Charlie was saying earlier on, it takes many years. Everybody's unique, so I won't put a number on it. It can take several years to integrate the walk-in before the mission that was there can come online, because you have to clear the vehicle, our lovely earthly body. We have to clear the vehicle to a certain degree before the mission can come online. And so for walk-ins, it can feel frustrating because there's this sense of, I've got this big mission I'm here to accomplish, but somehow I'm not able to bring it online. So I just want to say, hang in there. It's doable. If I've done it, anybody can do it, because this body was full of trauma and full of pain. And it's not fully clear yet. I'm still working on myself. But if I can do it, anybody can do it. So I guess that's what I want to share, Charlie. Just
Yeah, I was intuitively aware of the trauma that Armel went through. But she didn't tell me in words,
mm,
but I know you've worked through that, and I can see a lightness about you now that wasn't there
mm.
when I knew Armel.
Same. I remember you also, Charlie, or the memories I have. And I think in those days we didn't have the language to talk about trauma, and also in that philosophy school there wasn't a lot of space for uh, delving into emotional stuff. It was more about ideals,
Yeah.
and ideals are wonderful. They're like a beacon that holds the light for you, but it's not enough to have ideals.
No, we got to figure out how to walk the earth as well.
Absolutely, yes.
Anyway, your work is powerful, and I'm so happy to have known Armel and to know you now also. So, does anybody have a question? Yeah, Veronique, go ahead there.
I feel like I have a lot of questions actually, but I'll go with one at least. Well, I guess the first one would be um, what gave you faith and what kept you going since it feels like it was difficult at first and to some extent still now. What has, yeah, kept you going one step at a time on this new journey?
Thank you. It's a beautiful question and very relevant. What kept me going was inside in my heart, I have this huge love of God and love of humanity. And I know inside that I've come here to help humanity, and that is my service to God. And that's what kept me going. And, I have bad days and I cry to God and I say, I'm not doing very well, God. I'm going to fail my mission. I'm not going to succeed because look at the mess I'm in. So I've had to deal with my humanity. But at the same time, hold on to my divinity. It's not an easy task. Have I answered your question, Veronique?
Yes, and yeah, and by the way, I want to thank you and Charlie because that's very. I had never heard a story like that before.
It's very
It just keeps on opening my view of the world a bit larger. I since I'm here, obviously, I heard about lots of NDEs, but never a story about walking. So that's very mind blowing, I suppose, for lack of better words. And the way you shared it is just very touching.
So I've learned to be more human. You can't walk into a supermarket and say to everybody, I love you. It doesn't work.
Yeah, I guess so.
That's fine.
I had another question, if I may. Um, just curious to know if there's any relationship of any kind with Ariel.
You mean, do I still keep in touch with her?
Yeah, yes. Or the other way around. I don't know which way.
So I didn't delve into it too much. But what happens at the soul level with a walk-in is that the first soul who leaves, she has prepared the ground. And as a kind of a reward for having prepared the ground for the walk-in, she leaves with no karma. So I walk in and I take over her unfinished karma. That's the rule of the third dimension. You can't come into the third dimension without karma. That's why the angels can't incarnate. They have no karma. Or some angels choose to take on karma just to incarnate, just to have the human experience. But it is one of the rules of the game. This is literally a game that we're in. It doesn't feel like a game a lot of the time. It feels like a drama. But it is a vast drama on a stage. Like Shakespeare said, this world is a stage. Well, he's absolutely right. And the souls who incarnate, they take on karma, and karma is just lessons that we're here to learn. That's nothing else. It's nothing because you've been bad in a previous life. It's not like that at all. Before we incarnate, we go in front of the karmic board and we have a chat with the karmic board, and we say, okay, next life I want to learn about disempowerment, for example. And then you're born into a life where you're abused or you're beaten or whatever it is, and then you learn about disempowerment. And then through disempowerment, then as you overcome the disempowerment, you learn about empowerment. So it's like that. So I took on the karma of Ariel. So that's how I'm connected to her, I guess. But I'm not connected to her at the soul level. Hopefully, she's back with God in the higher dimensions. That's where I want her to be.
Yeah, thank you for your questions, Veronique. Anybody else? Not sure I can see everybody here on my screen.
I just unmiked Elizabeth. So
Yeah, go ahead, Elizabeth.
as usual, I don't even know where to start. I don't trust a lot what comes out of my mouth because I've heard voices and seen visions and lived 12 lives. I'm 72 today. It's my birthday. But thank you, Ahlmeirah. What you said deeply moved me. I mean, I'm in tears, which is good because I didn't cry for 60 years. I have been given so many missions, I don't even know where to start. Whatever soul contract I made, in this lifetime, experienced torture, trafficking, crucifixion, enslavement, mind control programming. You know, I'm the only person in the world who knows where MK Ultra Monarch records are hidden. That's a mission. I'm supposed to help with Christianity and the Catholic Church because I experienced crucifixion at the age of 4.5. And just so many other things. And I tell people, I say that, you know, I've experienced visions. I've saved my brother's life in Vietnam, 10,000 miles away, and my father's life in an airplane. And since everyone's here is French, I'm going to tell you a vision I had at Versailles that one of you might be able to help. And I experienced high level torture or trafficking during the Cold War, and I hold a mortgage. It's like, fuck, that is so human. And I don't know if I've had walk-ins. I feel like I'm becoming another person. The Elia is my great-grandmother's name. I'm called Elizabeth, and you know, Elizabeth has a crown on. And, you know, how can you sit on a toilet with a crown on? I mean, that just doesn't make sense. So I'm ready to do some shifting, but it's so confusing. I've taken 2 months off. I saved enough money so I didn't have to work for 2 months. And I'm completely opening to God. I worked with an international anxiety coach and have actually gone to complete peace and love and compassion. My parents were involved in a satanic ritual abuse. I was trafficked from infancy for 12 years, and Nazis were involved. So, I mean, it's just like, you know, I have a lot of plot. I was given what I used to say is I could put myself in the shoes of almost anyone on earth who suffered. And now I say I can put myself in the shoes of almost anyone on earth who needs healing. There's a shift. And everything I lost, I regained. And because God always sent angels, Jesus, the Holy Spirit, I've been transported to heaven to meet the Holy Spirit. And it's like, what do I do with it? It's, you know, I'm kind of being drawn to write a book, but where do you even start with a story like that? And I'm this 2 months off I've taken is to just open myself up completely to divine will and not Elizabeth's will, where I can just, you know, start racing around the planet at the speed of a bullet. So you know, what you said about abundance really helped, and how much you love God, because now, you know, after healing physically and emotionally from, say, the crucifixion. And that was not the worst thing that I went through, by the way. I now can see that Jesus and Holy Spirit, the angels, there were hundreds of angels around me when that was happening. Even when I was in the mind control programming, and I was always saved. I was always a human or angelic, savior. And it's wonderful. I mean, I had these visions since I was 3.5, total recall to the horizon. And I know I'm talking too much, but I'm just a verbal processor. I talk a lot. So anyway, I have a lot of anxiety, that human inner child. You can imagine what my amygdala is like, having been through all that. And Charlie, God bless him, we've had many of the sessions that he learned from you, Ahlmeirah, has been helping a lot. So anyway, what you said just allowed me to realize that there is another path. And maybe just to leave it, I have to, God gives you the boat, I have to work the oars. So I do have to earn a living, things like that. But I'm learning how to trust more. And I do feel like I'm more on the cusp of what's opening up. But what I really love is what you said, that if you're connected, you have abundance, and the connection is love. So there's this very shy, quiet engineer that came into my life, and I didn't know how to love. I mean, they almost obliterated me as a human being and the ability to give and receive love. So now I know I've loved him for years and just didn't know how to express it. So I'm just I was going out on a date Tuesday, so, that helped. Just the connection is not money for abundance. The connection is love. So, that's all I can do. Is at this point, I had a huge realization December 2nd to give my life to Christ, and I'm leaving it up to God. I've been praying a woman's vocation rosary, leaving it open. So the vocations are marriage, becoming a nun, becoming an oblate into a monastery, or just being a worker bee, earning a living that way. So it's a scary place to be for a Westerner, I think, of just being in free fall with God, just total free fall. And I use the word God. I live in the Bible Belt of Florida, and people are scared if you do not use the word God. So, and God bless them here, they put up crosses all over the place. I mean, God wanted me to heal and not take it personally that I was crucified, because he put it in my face for years until I realized that I got great gifts from that, because I know that anything can be healed and anyone can be forgiven and everyone can be loved. So that's just, that's where I am. And I thank you for what you said. It's what I needed to hear. And I always know it's good when I cry, because I'm closest to God when I laugh and when I cry. And I think God laughs and cries at the same time, that, Avalokiteshvara, Kuan Yin kind of moments. Yes. And I've been in every faith now, and I'm actually practicing Catholic now. It's where I'm supposed to be. And I go with the flow. I'm kind of like Mary Poppins, when the wind changes. So
Thank you, Elizabeth. Ahlmeirah, do you have any response?
Elizabeth, from my experience as a healer, and also in my own personal journey, because I've had a lot of trauma also in my life. The purpose of trauma is actually to learn about it and then to heal it. And then you can pass the healing on to others. And the best healers are the people who have known trauma. if you don't know trauma, you can't understand people's pain. So the depth of the pain that you have experienced, Elizabeth, is the depth of understanding that you can have for humanity. So you must be a great soul to have taken on so much. And I know it's been hard. I can hear it and feel it in your voice and in your energy. But I can feel you're coming out the other end. And now it's time for you to enjoy. And
Yeah,
what
I'm doing Lectio Divina, and it's all about rejoicing,
yeah.
rejoicing in God, rejoicing in the Lord.
And what heals is love. Love is the
Mm-hmm.
So whatever way you can let love in, or whatever way you can love yourself, that's the way.
Mm-hmm.
I found that
Yeah.
out by kind of mistake, because I was desperate to heal this anorexia and bulimia. I'd read so many books about it, and none of the books told me what to do. And in the end, I just decided, okay, I'm just going to love the anorexia and the bulimia. I'm just going to love myself the way I am, instead of condemning that bit that's sick and that's
Mm-hmm.
emotional. And then every time that I had those thoughts, oh, I'm scared of putting on weight, I would just love that part of me and say, I love you. And every time I had the feeling of I want to throw up, I would say, I love you. I love that part of me. And that's what healed it. And now I'm still human. I still have loads of things to heal. This morning I was crying. And I do my practice every time. Every time there's pain, I love that pain. And that's how I heal it. It's the most direct route to healing, is to love it. But we've been so conditioned to judge. There's the Judeo-Christian programming of judging is so strong in our Western mindset that when there's a part of us that's not perfect, we judge it. The first thing we do is we point the finger at it and think, bad, ugly, nasty, shameful. That's not the right way.
Right. It's certainly not God or Jesus or any angels. Yeah. Yeah.
We need to do the opposite. We need to go towards that part of us and hug it and love it and say, I love you. And then all the fear that's held with it just melts away. And that's what Jesus did. That's why he came to earth. He came to teach about love. So I'm just repeating what he said 2,000 years ago. And his message was just a message of love. And that's what he did right until the very end on the cross. He continued to love right until the very end. He asked God to forgive the people who were nailing him to the cross. That's just pure love. So if we can do that, if he can do that, we can do that. That's the only way forward. Every time we have a pain, every time we hurt somewhere, every time we're angry, upset, annoyed, shameful, we have to love that part. And it's a meditation.
It's a strong
Do you,
reminder.
do
I'm
you,
feeling quite emotional on hearing that. Thank you so much.
Mm.
Ahlmeirah, what do you actually say? Do you say something in particular to yourself?
Well, initially I asked myself, how can I love myself? So I would stop 10 times a day, whatever I was doing, and I would say, how can I love myself right now, this moment? So I'm a kinesthetic person. I like touch. So very often it's a little, it's okay, you're doing well, a little reassurance. But if you're a more visual person, you can look at yourself in the mirror and, smile at yourself and say, I love you.
Mm-hmm.
Or tell yourself, you're a wonderful person. Look at what you're going through. There's lots of ways of doing it. Or you can write, or, there's just so many ways. For example, one of the things I talk about in my abundance group is about unworthiness. unworthiness is a program which is based on the concept that we're no good. Yeah. But it doesn't take into account the hundreds of qualities that we have. And a very simple way of undoing unworthiness is to focus on your quality. So you can take one quality at a time per week. For example, you can decide, okay, this week I'm focusing on the quality that I'm a gentle person, you know, and when you see a fly buzzing at the window, you don't swat it, you open the window, you let the fly out. You know, it's the little actions that show what kind of person we are. It's the little actions. And you can focus on your qualities like that. For 1 week, you focus on the fact that you're a gentle person. And maybe every night you write down, today I noticed that I was gentle by blah, 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 blah. You know, whatever it is, it can be a really small thing. And then the following week, you focus on another quality. I'm focusing on the quality that I care. I'm sure everybody here in this group cares. You wouldn't be here if you didn't care. You focus on that. You care. And maybe that's why you can't watch the news, because you care too much about the world and the news are just too horrifying. You know, and just focus on that quality for 1 week. Notice how much you care. Notice how caring you are with the people around you, the animals around you, how you feel about the planet, everything. You know, the way you recycle your waste. That means you care about the planet. You know, all these little actions, they all mean things about you. They say who you are. And if you do that one quality at a time, I guarantee your self-esteem will rise on one side and your self-worth will go, It's a simple thing to do, but nobody's taught us how to do that. There's loads of little simple things like that. And I believe that Jesus talked about all these things, but the thing is that in his time, his vibration was so much higher than the people who were there. Most of them, they didn't understand what he was talking about.
Yes, and there have been many mistranslations. There's several in the Lord's Prayer.
Yes.
He used the word forgiveness. That's a Greek, a German word. He used the word release. And it's the same word they use to release horses at a starting gate, of just letting go.
Letting go, yeah.
So,
yeah.
Thank you.
This week I'm going to focus on joy.
Mm.
Okay, this will be my lesson for this week. Thank you.
I'm just wondering if anybody else would like to come in with a question. Thank you, Elizabeth, and thank you, Ahlmeirah.
I'd like to say something, but I'm not quite sure what it is I'd like to say. So I just need to see where it brings me. I suppose I have two small questions, Ahlmeirah. Do you remember where you were before you incarnated? Is that always with you, where you were and what you were like?
I remember some things. I remember love, and and in a way that love that I have for humanity and that love for God is what I remember. And it's like I come from love. That's what I remember. I also have a very weird memory, which is going to sound very ET, but seeing as you asked, I will share it. I remember going down the dimensions, because there's loads of different dimensions, and where we are as humans is you have to go down the vibration. And I remember going through a stargate, and that's not far from Arcturus. And I was in a kind of a spaceship. I only know I was in a spaceship because I could see through a window. And through the window, I could see the Earth. And as I was looking at the Earth, I felt this huge love for the Earth and for humanity. So that's what I remember. I don't know if that answers your question, Dom, but
Yeah, that's a lovely answer. Thank you. And do you help people? I know you teach your course,
mm,
your self-healing course. But can you see people? Can you know people? Like some near-death experience people can. They can tell things about a person.
yeah, I'm very, very intuitive. The thing is that when I first walked in, I was like an open channel. So if I was walking down a supermarket aisle, I knew what was going on with the person who was walking by me. So it was just too much information, literally. So um, I had to literally shut it down. It was too much to handle and be human at the same time. But yes, I'm very, very intuitive, very good at reading people, and I'm what's called an empath. So I feel people's emotion and people's pain in my body when I'm working with them. But I have learned over the years to have boundaries, which we need as humans. Otherwise, it's unlivable. You don't sleep, you don't get any break. You're just continuously receiving information. It's impossible to handle. So I can tell that your question, for example, is coming from the fact that you're also hypersensitive and that you receive a lot of information and it's not always easy for you to handle.
Yes, I live well, my ex-husband, who I have a very good relationship with, but he used to say I live in my own little world. But I said, no, it's big.
Yeah.
But I do have to live in my own world a lot,
Yeah.
you know.
It's a natural thing when you're a sensitive empath. I've learned over the years that it's a natural thing. You have to preserve yourself. Otherwise, it's too much and it actually damages you energetically and emotionally and physically also. It can damage your physical body. So it's actually good to have boundaries.
It is. I suppose what's really troubled me, and I've asked about this so many times, and to my divine tribe, and they very patiently reassure me every single time, and I come away smiling. But I feel I have to publish a book, which is going to be, which a few people is going to be difficult for them.
Mm.
And, I just wish it wasn't. And maybe by the time I do it, it won't be so difficult for them. And when I finish explaining why I need to do it, and it's only part one of at least three. But I suppose I have a question around that for you, if you feel anything.
Well, right now the feeling I'm getting is that you live in different dimensions. So I can feel that, there's some of you here right now, but there's also some of you not here in another dimension. And you're learning how to handle that. You're learning how to handle that multidimensionality. And also that's your gift to the world. That's also, you're here to bring those qualities from the other dimension in. Does that make sense to you, what I'm saying?
That makes total sense. And the rest of what you're saying seems to me as though I have to publish the first book first. I have to tell people how human I am first, how traumatized I've been, and how healed I am, and how healed no one can be, and how ridiculously simple being in those other dimensions is, just stop trying, because, trying just moves you farther away.
It's easy for you, Dawn. It's not so easy for everybody else.
Ah,
You have a natural ability with that. But also you can help people to open. I think that's why that's actually why it's there. You can help people to open to that multidimensional connection. And writing about your story doesn't have to be negative.
yeah.
You know?
No, and it's not. It's, one person I gave it to read, she gave it back to me. She said, this is sacred manuscript and belongs in a tabernacle, and she gave it back to me in a beautiful box, a decorated box. So it is not really traumatic. I'm not feeding the trauma in the world.
Mm.
And do you feel I could learn from you to help me along my way?
Oh, well, I think it's actually more up to you to know that.
Well, when you talked about abundance and abundance is love, I was saying to myself at the same time, and my heart was just exploding, is that abundance is joy, which is, love and joy go together. And yes, it made me want to connect with you more.
Well, it's very easy. If you feel like you're attracted to my energy, then yes. If you feel like, no, I have nothing, I don't feel a resonance, then it's no. It's so easy. Intuition.
Yes. Yeah.
And I have to say, I'm not at my best. The evening time is not my time, and I know I look terribly white. It's because of the lighting.
That's fabulous. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dawn. And thank you for allowing me to feel your energy, because the way I see it is that people give me permission to feel their energy or not. And I felt you giving me permission. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dawn, and thank you, Ahlmeirah. Dawn is actually my sister. So I know what you're talking about that book, and I've always felt it's going to be okay. Well, okay, I didn't always feel that way 15 years ago, but um, yeah, we definitely know each other as humans because we used to argue like cats and dogs when we were young and not so young, but we get on great now, and I do feel. Like in 2018, I nearly died from meningitis and my brain wasn't working, but my consciousness was fine. I was in here, but I couldn't remember the word for book or cup. Um, but I started to have spiritual experiences and started to awaken gradually. I asked for a gradual awakening because I didn't want any more trauma. But you've helped me on that path, Dawn, as well. And you told me Ahlmeirah was coming to wake me as a healer without knowing she was coming to wake me as a healer, or specifically how it would happen. But I think that book is going to be fine. I don't think it will be as heavy as you maybe think it might be.
I don't think it's heavy. I think it's actually beautiful.
Mm,
But I'm just nervous for those who are afraid it will be heavy.
I don't think you need to worry.
Yeah.
Anyway.
It's all projecting, isn't it, into the future? You calm down. Yeah, thank you, Charlie.
Thank you. Claudia, I think you're the only person who hasn't asked a question yet. Is there anything you'd like to ask?
I do. I do have a question, Ahlmeirah. And you said the keywords for me. You said the fear of failure. So I do have questions about overcoming fear of failure. I literally sat in my car just a few days ago and just cried out to God, I don't want to fail. Because sometimes I feel like I trip over my own feet in this journey. Could you give me some words of wisdom, please?
I know the fear of failure very well. So I'm going to backtrack a little bit because earlier on Elizabeth talked about mission. And the way I see mission, in the past, I used to see mission like a huge big lighthouse that was out there, 100 miles away. And it was far away and you had to get there. And I don't see it like that anymore. I have learned that mission is what you are dealing with now. Your mission is to deal with what you're dealing with now. And a little bit more. And then once you've dealt with what you're dealing with now, you've got in the next mission, what you're dealing with next. That's your next mission. So mission is something that evolves. As you evolve, it evolves. And we have, as humans, it's already such a big thing to come into a human body. You know, from the higher dimensions, the angels and the masters, they're all looking down on us and they're going like this. They're bowing down to all the human souls who have the courage to come into a human body and experience the level of disconnection that is part of being human. So, of course, we experience it from the other way around now because we're in the human body and we're going, oh God, I don't think I can achieve my mission. It's so heavy here. And my programs are so heavy. So it's one day at a time. One day at a time. What can I do today? So ultimately, you know, our mission is to be love. Yeah, to be the biggest love that we can be. So how can I love today? How can you love today, Claudia? How can you love your work, your clients, your children, yourself, the people in your life, your body, the animals around you, the earth? That's your mission. Your mission is to love. Every day is to love. How does that feel?
Simple. Yeah. Like I said, I trip over my own feet. So thank you. That was lovely, and I'll remember that.
You know, the first time I met you, Claudia, all I could feel was love. I could feel love coming at me. So you are love. You are love. It's just the human part of you hasn't quite realized it, and you've got some unworthiness that says, oh, I'm bad and I'm shameful and blah, blah, blah. That's all, you know, that's over there. So you just need to focus on realizing all the love that you are and realize how loving you are. You're full of love. You are full of love. The work that you do is a sacred work, is a sacred office. To be a counselor, all the counselors and the healers, it's a huge work. The nurses, the doctors, maybe not so much the doctors. Sorry, that was a joke.
Yeah, I worked with some very compassionate doctors. You were a good doctor too in your day.
So, you know, ultimately at the foundation of those service jobs is love. Of course, there's ego that gets in the way. You know, I've been watching the series of Dr. House. Oh my God, what a big ego he's got, that guy. But underneath it, he's got love.
Yeah, it's amazing. I think the most amazing human beings are those who have suffered so much and then they are so kind and loving in their day to day. You know, it's very easy to become bitter. And Viktor Frankl was a big inspiration to me at some point in my life. Um, he helped me to understand kind of a spiritual dimension to psychotherapy. Well, not that I knew him personally, but reading his books, it was like he was talking to my soul. But he spent 3 years in a concentration camp during World War II. And when he got out of the camp, one of his fellow freed prisoners went running through a field of wheat. And Victor said to him, "Stop running through the wheat. What do you think you're doing? That's somebody's property. You've no right to damage that." And the guy said back to him, "But don't you think we've suffered enough? You know, can't we just kind of just do whatever I want to do now?" I said, "No, no, you've no right to damage that guy's property, whoever he is." So still, you know, after all that, the most intense suffering, to still be able to think of others and what do others need, and to be kind and compassionate, and not to let your own suffering and trauma diminish or hide the goodness within you. I think that's really, really powerful. Okay, so you've been with us about an hour and a half now, Ahlmeirah, and I know it's later in France than it is in Ireland. Any final words you'd like to say before we finish up?
Oh, well, I want to thank all of you, first of all. You know, I didn't know what to expect tonight. I didn't know if there was going to be 20 people or whatever. And you've made me feel very at home, and I've really enjoyed your questions because they've been personal, you know, so I feel like I've created a personal connection with you. And I value that greatly. I've learned that you know, the human connection is just the same as the love connection we have with God. It's the same. You're God, I'm God, you're God, I'm God. We love each other, we connect, we see each other. That's just love. So thank you for accepting me and listening to me and asking me your deep questions that are coming from your heart, and it's very touching.
Thank you for being with us, Ahlmeirah. I really feel a strong connection between the whole group today and yourself. And I can put your contact details in the description on YouTube, which will be available on Facebook too. So anyone who feels drawn to Ahlmeirah, that they may contact you. And thanks everyone for participating today. It's been a rough couple of days in Ireland with the storms, and people haven't had electricity and heating and water, and I wasn't sure if we'd be able to go ahead with this or not, even yesterday morning. So yeah, thank you for showing up. Thank you for being here, Ahlmeirah, and thank you everyone for joining us. So come back next month.
Could I go ahead and ask a quick question?
I'll just finish up the recording and then, or would you
Okay.
like the question to be recorded?
It, I think others might be interested too.
Okay, go
You
ahead.
can decide. And that I wanted to ask Ahlmeirah, she talked about setting boundaries if you pick up a lot of information from people, and just wondered what kind of techniques you use for that.
Well, boundaries is about realizing that in the upper chakras, we are all one. It's true. You know, we all share the same love, and we all share the same intelligence, and we also share the same connection. But in the lower chakras, we're not all one. I have my body, you have yours. So there's lots of different ways of asserting boundaries, but, you know, for example, if you've been abused, you need to learn to say no. No to touch that's inappropriate, or contact that's inappropriate, or words that are inappropriate. That word no is a very important word. It doesn't mean you're denying the person's love. You are acknowledging your own love when you say no. So a lot of people get confused with that word no. They say, oh, you shouldn't have any no's. There's that crazy movie with Ken Carey, The Yes Man. He forgot all about the no. And it's a very important word. And same with emotions. You can say no to somebody else's emotion. This is your emotion. It's not mine. So as empaths, we have to learn about that. I've had to learn about that, not to get overly embroiled in somebody's emotion. Of course, it's very helpful as a healer to feel somebody else's emotion. But after the healing session, if I'm still burdened by that person's emotion, how is that serving me? It doesn't serve me. So it's about learning to, dissociate. So when we've been traumatized, we don't know boundaries, because the very issue of trauma breaks boundaries. So then we have to relearn all those boundaries. And then in the solar plexus, it's about power. So that means that you don't give your power away to somebody else. So that means you trust yourself. You trust your feelings, you trust your intuition, you trust your guidance. You don't let anybody else tell you what's better for you than what you know inside. And it can take time. I remember Ariel gave her power away to her first teacher. And it's very common. You have a spiritual teacher, you think, oh, they know all the answers. Please tell me what to do. No. Never do that. You never give your power, not even to an angel or a master or anything. You stay with what feels right for you. So when that angel told me, your name is Ahlmeirah, I felt inside, does it feel right? And then I felt the energy of the name and it felt right. But if it hadn't felt right, I wouldn't have taken on the name. Does that make sense, Elizabeth? That's a kind of a crash course in boundaries.
Yes, very much. And it's just sometimes we need to hear it one more time in a different way. That human brain has a threshold. But thank you. Yeah, that made sense. And I'm learning a lot, so and I did want to mention, if we could stay on a little bit after the recording stops, I wanted to talk very quickly about that Versailles vision and pass it on to somebody. But we can do that off record.
Okay.
And let you all know I've had equal joys to the trauma I've had. And that's what God does, gives us that equal.
I know you, Elizabeth, and you are powerful. I'm always impressed with your power to overcome, to face and to overcome. And on that note, I think we'll end the recording. And thank you for being here, and see you all next time. And like, subscribe, leave comments, all that good stuff.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.